Welcome to DDRC members, staff, and guests. Multiple staff members are present to make sure that the meeting runs smoothly and all applicants and citizens are able to communicate with the commission at the appropriate time. If you are here today and would like to speak about a case, please provide your name clearly into the microphone, and please be sure to sign in either at the back of the room or at the podium for documentation purposes. If you are here today to speak about a case, you must speak up when the chairperson calls for public comment.
I will read the roll. Ms. Sims Branham.
Here.
Ms. Gallo.
Here.
Mr. Greenberg. Here. Ms. Jaco.
Here.
Mr. Lee Decker.
Here.
Mr. McKenzie. Mr. Salibi.
Here.
Mr. Shelton. And Ms. Thomas.
Here.
We have quorum.
Great. In order to avoid ex parte communications, DDRC members are under strict instructions not to discuss cases under consideration with the public or with each other outside of the public forum. The meeting typically starts with staff calling the case, giving a summary of the project, and then calling on the applicant to present if they wish. Decisions are typically made in one evening. Decisions may be appealed within 30 days to a court of competent jurisdiction. Oaths will be administered individually as we hear either from applicants or from live speakers. Applicants with requests before the DDRC are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions asked by the DDRC or staff regarding the request. Members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. Applicants may have 5 minutes to respond. Staff has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Staff is requesting a few changes to the agenda. 2311 Green Street, which is under the consent agenda, we are asking to move to the regular agenda because we have some additional information to present to the commission. Likewise, the item under the regular agenda, 819 Maple Street, we have had discussions with the property owners. They want to move forward with the part of the request that staff was recommending approval for, and they're dropping the other piece for the moment. So we're recommending that we just move that to the consent agenda. And those would be all the changes to the agenda.
So do you want to do the motion now, or?
I think so.
I think so. And so this is a little unique because we haven't really had this situation very often. So I think I need a motion and a second to amend the agenda as that was presented, moving the 819 Maple Street case from the regular agenda to the consent agenda, and moving the 2311 Green Street case from the consent agenda to the regular agenda.
Do we need to clarify that we're moving into the consent agenda and accepting that it's just with the ones that the staff recommended and not with the exception that's being removed at this moment?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I amend your motion to say that and move it.
Second.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes.
Ms. Sims Branham?
Yes.
Ms. Gallo?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg? Mr. Lee Decker?
Yes.
Mr. McKenzie? Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
Mr. Shelton? And Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. The DDRC uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. If a member of the DDRC or the general public wants to discuss an item on the consent agenda, that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The DDRC then approves the remaining consent agenda items. Will staff please review the consent agenda?
Certainly, our first item is a request for a recommendation for a landmark status for the Sylvan Clock, or the Seth Thomas Clock, located in the public right-of-way at the northeast corner of Main and Hampton Streets and within the City Center Design District. Second case is for 207 Watery Avenue. Again, a request for recommendation for landmark status of a structure in the Wales Garden Architectural Conservation District. And lastly, 819 Maple Street, request for a certificate of design approval for exterior changes to a single-family home in the Old Shandon Lower Waverly Protection Area, Area A.
Is there anyone from the DDRC that would like any item removed from the new consent agenda? Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Because we will not be discussing it once we approve the consent agenda. Okay. All right, do I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda subject to all the conditions contained in there and also the July minutes?
I move for approval of the consent agenda and the July minutes.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes.
Ms. Sims Branham?
Yes.
Ms. Gallo?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg? Mr. Lee Decker?
Yes.
Mr. McKenzie? Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
Mr. Shelton? And Ms. Thomas? Motion passes.
Great. We'll now move on to the regular agenda.
The case we have on the regular agenda tonight is 2311 Green Street. This is a request for a certificate of design approval for new construction in the Old Shandon Lower Waverly Protection Area, Area A. This is a proposal for a two-story duplex to be built on a vacant lot in the Old Shandon Lower Waverly District. The building will feature a two-story front porch across the facade and a gable front roof with a recessed gable porch, with a recessed gable featuring a 1/1 window in the center. The porches will be supported by square porch posts with square railings between them. The front facade will be 3 bays wide with double-hung windows in the center bay. The structure will be a long rectangular form with the short end facing the street. Let me get that picture up for you. This lot is on a steep hill, which is supported by a retaining wall along the sidewalk. Due to the length of the house and the topography of the lot, much of the rear section of the left and right facades will be minimally visible or not visible from the public right-of-way. The house will have hardy plank siding, 1/1 windows, and porches that fit with the scale of the neighborhood. There has been a lot of loss of historic materials on the 2300 block of Green Street. So seeing or finding context to compare these structures to is somewhat challenging. So staff had to look at some of the new construction buildings that have been built there recently, as well as expanding the view to the block around this building and not just the streetscape as we usually look at. There were 2 other duplexes approved on this block by the DDRC in July of 2023, and they have since been constructed. Both have a similar form, being rectangular with the short end facing the street and extending back deep into the lot. This design would continue that pattern and be sympathetic to the existing character of the neighborhood. So real quick, the slide on the left, the house that's on the left is one of the only historic buildings remaining, and then the 2 houses to the right of that are the new construction houses that were finished a few months ago. Staff has very few concerns with the architectural design of the building. Many of our concerns are coming from the lot itself and the placement on the lot. So we will go over the guidelines for new construction, but we'll also be focusing more on the placement, the grading, the landscaping, the trees, and the driveway, which has been the main concern. There was feedback from the public concerning this, and then we also had new materials submitted that explained the plan more sufficiently. So to go through the architectural elements, the height of the house the guidelines say to construct new buildings to a height that is compatible with the height of surrounding buildings. New construction shall not vary greatly in height from other older buildings in the vicinity. The proposed building will be 2 stories tall, which is consistent with older buildings in the vicinity and in keeping with this guideline. New information from the site plan from the engineer is showing that the foundation wall may be fairly tall depending on the grading of the lot. Staff is asking that we limit the height of the foundation wall on the front facade to no more than 3.5 feet. Size and scale. The size and scale of a new building shall be visually compatible with surrounding buildings. Do not construct buildings that disrupt the existing scale of the area. The size and scale fit well into the surrounding neighborhood. Single-story and two-story houses are present on this block and around the neighborhood, and this new design will be compatible with existing historic structures. The length of the building is proposed to be 80 feet long, and this map may be a little difficult to read, but we did do a GIS measurement of some of the other buildings on the lot, the other historic buildings on the lot. Over on the side on Oak Street, there are two structures, one that's about 70 feet in length, another that's about 72 feet in length, and then on the block behind on Stark Street, there is another historic building that I believe is at 82 feet in length. So there is a pattern for buildings being this length on this block. Massing. Arrange the mass of new buildings, the relationship of solid components, example walls, columns, etc., to open spaces so that it is compatible with existing historic buildings on the block or street. Breaking up uninteresting box-like forms into smaller varied masses is essential to maintaining the character of the streetscape. Do not construct single monolithic forms that are not relieved by variations in massing. The massing of the proposed house is typical for the neighborhood. There are many two-story houses with a rectangular form in this section of Old Shandon Lower Waverly. While there are not many two-story porches, this design is varied, well-spaced, and in proportion to the house. The remainder of the facade features first and second story windows, which are aligned and balanced. This is similar to other roof and porch configurations currently found in the neighborhood. Section 5 is dealing with the setback. The guidelines say to locate the new building on the sites so that the distance of the structure from the right-of-way is similar to adjacent structures. Do not violate the existing setback pattern by placing buildings in front of or behind existing facade lines. The 2300 block of Green Street has seen a significant loss of houses over the years, and only a few historic buildings remain today. One of the neighboring houses has a very short setback and is close to the street, which is this historic building on the left, while there are two vacant lots on the other side of this property. The topography of this lot poses a challenge. It is very steep and supported by a tall concrete retaining wall along the sidewalk. Any house built here will be up off the street and not level with the sidewalk. The proposed setback does not reflect the setback of the adjacent house or the new construction nearby. Staff has requested a setback of at least 8 feet and no more than 22 feet to align with the established setback pattern on the street. We are allowing this flexibility or this span of setback because of the grading that's going to need to be done. It's still a little bit unclear of exactly how much grading will have to happen, and so we're giving a little leniency to that. The other consideration are the trees. So if you see on the right of the lot and then sort of a little bit into the center, there are two fairly large trees there. While we cannot require anyone to keep trees on the land, we would prefer if they stay because it is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And so we are allowing space to keep the trees, at least one of the trees in the front, and position the house behind those. So depending on if the trees are able to be maintained, that will also go into effect with the setback. The engineering plan that we have here does show a 20-foot setback, and that would be very much acceptable to us to have a 20-foot setback. That's in keeping with the other new construction projects on the street. The next guideline is the sense of entry. Place the main entrance and the associated architectural elements, porches, steps, etc., so that they are compatible to surrounding structures. The main entrance shall be constructed with covered porches, porticos, or other architectural forms that are found on historic structures on the block or street. Do not construct facades with no strong sense of entry. The central front porch entrance is in keeping with design elements of this neighborhood and provides a strong sense of entry. The rear entrances will not be visible from the public right-of-way. Staff is also asking for an entrance to be placed on the porch to maintain the rhythm of opening and sense of entry seen in the neighborhood. We would find it acceptable to have either a central entrance to the front porch with a walkway leading to the driveway, or an entrance on the driveway side of the front porch that would lead right over to the driveway there. So one way or another, we're asking to have some sense of entry or a direct entry onto the porch from the front of the house. So rhythm of openings is the next category. Construct new buildings so that the relationship of width to height of windows and doors and the rhythm of solids, walls, to voids, doors, and window openings is visually compatible with historic buildings on the block or street. Maintain a similar ratio of height to width in these bays of the facade. Do not introduce incompatible facade features that upset the rhythm of the openings established in supported structures. The proposed design is well-proportioned and visually compatible with the historic buildings in the area. The porch maintains a consistent rhythm and is visually compatible with historic buildings on the block. The windows on the front facade will be well-placed and balanced. Windows on the front portion of the side facades are in line with one another and well-positioned. Some of the windows further back on the side facades are not balanced, but they will most likely not be visible from the public right-of-way. Finally, Guideline 10 deals with materials, texture, and details. Staff finds that the windows and doors and siding that have been proposed are in keeping with the guidelines. We do note that the foundation is scheduled to be a brick with a parge coat, which is acceptable for the area. And we have asked to approve any other material choices for retaining walls, soffits, trim, porch columns, flooring, and railing. These all must be visually compatible with what is found in historic homes in the district. And this is because on the site plan, we do see that they are going to be repositioning or redesigning the retaining wall. And so that is why we will need to approve whatever materials are used for that. Staff recommendations. Staff finds that the proposed new construction at 2311 Green Street generally complies with Section 3 of the Old Shandon Lower Waverly Protection Area Historic Preservation Guidelines and recommends granting a certificate of design approval with the following conditions. A revised setback of between 8 feet and 22 feet at the maximum. All cladding will have a horizontal orientation. All material choices for outstanding items be deferred to staff to work out with the applicant, and all other details deferred to staff. In addition, we would like to add that the height of the foundation wall at the front facade be no more than 3.5 feet tall, and that there is an entrance to the front porch somewhere either on the side or in the center of the front porch. And that's it.
Looks like any commissioners have any follow-up questions with staff?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just because that was a lot of information at the moment, but let me just be clear about, well, first of all, let's talk about the retaining wall. What are they showing currently, because I can't see these dimensions about what the front facade, the front elevation of the retaining wall currently they're showing. Is it different from what you're proposing at 3 feet, 3.5 feet?
It's somewhat hard for us to tell as well because of the grading there, and I think that it is somewhat varied depending on what the grading ends up being. So that's why we wanted to lock it in place and make sure that we have clear guidelines and expectations on what that will be.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess we can let the applicant address if that's going to, I don't know if they've engineered it, but it looked like there was an engineering site plan, so maybe they can address that. And then I was confused, you did say it has a 20-foot setback, so it does follow your guidelines between 8 and 22?
On this plan that we just received this week, it does have a 20-foot setback there.
Okay, so it meets that piece.
Yeah, the
Then-
original submission had a deeper setback than that.
Okay, great. And then if you could go to the elevation again, because I'm confused about the central entry concept, because it's clearly a duplex and it needs to have 2 entrances, so I don't know. Tell me, could you explain that concept?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So the front is the section with the 2-story porch. As of right now, there's no entrance onto the 2-story front porch. So to keep with the rhythm of openings in the neighborhood, we would need to have an entrance there. It could have a set of stairs that lead up to it to be able to get into that.
To the second floor.
To the first floor. There's no ground floor
It's like
entrance
a
onto that
railing
porch.
shown all the way around.
Oh, you're talking about from the street to be able to get up to the floor?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Not to centralize a door in the center of that facade?
Right, just on the porch, yes. Because right now, the only entrances are coming where you could walk into the house are on the back. So that back facade, there's parking behind it, and so they're saying that the only way you'd walk into the house is from there. There are doors onto the porches, but the porches are enclosed in this current design, so.
So you're just asking for an opening in the railing to allow for someone to enter through the porch?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other clarifications
Yeah,
from
about
commissioners?
setbacks. On the site plan, what is the setback that's shown on the site plan?
On this plan that we received this week, it's 20 feet.
20?
We had originally gotten a plan that had a much deeper setback. The new construction buildings, you can maybe see it here, are both at around 20 feet of 20-foot setbacks, which you can see on this map here, the ones that are just down the block.
They've already gone within that 8 to 20 that you're asking for?
In the new proposal they have.
Okay, so that's no longer an issue?
We would like to have it solidified that that's what it's going to be, yes.
Well, when I looked at this, you showed there's two buildings, back to that slide, please.
Sure.
Is it 2315 and 2317? Those are new?
Yes,
They were approved by DDRC,
yes.
and they seem to have setbacks of much more than 22. And I guess the way I was looking at the guidelines, you're supposed to match existing buildings. So when these two at 2315 and 2317 were built, the only existing one was at, 2313? That's the one that's real close to the street.
Yes.
So somehow, we allowed a much greater setback than the existing building on the previous cases?
Yes, there wasn't enough historic material on the block to really set a precedent. So it was the one historic building, and the only other historic building is on the corner of Height and Green Street. So there wasn't enough of an established pattern, and we were able to allow them to have a deeper setback because there was only one historic building to base it off of.
Does it matter if they're historic? It's just, I thought existing buildings is what the criteria, match existing buildings.
We generally do look at the historic material to see what has been the long-standing pattern in the neighborhood. Yes.
Well, are you like sort of not sure that the applicant is going to build to 20, or what? Why is this still an issue?
We want them to build to about 20. I think if they keep the trees, that's going to be a mitigating factor, and depending on the grading, it may affect that to a degree, which is why we were willing to leave a range of the setback and cap it at no more than 22 feet. If the trees are able to stay, we would be willing to allow some space for those.
Well, the two on, the two on the right, you just showed up, the two new ones, 2315. Do you know what the setback is on those?
They're both at about 20 feet.
20? Mm-hmm. I scaled that off, and they looked a lot more like 70 to me.
No, they were approved at 20, and the GIS map measurements show it at about 20 as well. I think one's 21, one's 20, because there is an angle to the street there.
What's the width of the lots? Do you know the width of the lots offhand?
I believe for this lot, I want to say it was 40 feet.
40?
I don't have it right in front of me, but the house was, the house is about 20 feet width, and then the lot was about 40 feet wide. So then if you build a 20-foot width house, you would have 20 feet to leaves enough room for a driveway and for setbacks on the sides.
No, it just looks a lot more than 20 to me on this
Yeah.
map. If you just use the width of the lot as a scale, that they're set back, so.
Yeah.
Well, I believe the staff has verified it, so I think we're good. I think the staff has verified it, so I think we're good, Charles.
Any other questions to staff at this point? Is the applicant here?
Jim Daniel. I'm representing the Lower Waverly neighborhood. We have not seen this site plan. I was in
Okay.
Charleston yesterday and asked, we'd like to delay this to
Well,
next month.
can you wait till we get to public comment? Let me just get through the part of the agenda here, and then we can, did you already sign up to speak to, Jim? Okay, all right, cool. Give me just 1
Before he
minute.
talks, I'd like to just ask for postponement because we haven't seen the site plan. And we asked for it yesterday and
Right.
haven't seen it. Thank you.
Understood, all right, thank you. Is the applicant here today? No?
I did not get confirmation that
Okay.
they would be here.
All right, so I mean, a lot of times we get data even up to the point of the meeting, so that is not unusual for the commission. Excuse me? Well, talking out of order is important too, so if we could just please follow our format, I'd appreciate it. So if the applicant is not here, we can move to public comment. I think, is Jim, do we have more than one or just one signed up for public comment?
Just one.
Okay. Two? Okay, great.
Real quick question for staff. Was the proper notice put up at the site within the timeframe, the allotted
Yes.
timeframe?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
And I'll just clarify too, that there was a site plan in your packets, but what was received this week was a more detailed site plan, which does show additional information about parking that was not shown on the original site plan and the grading.
But the positioning of the building is the same. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's go to public comment then. Who would like to go first? Hi, if you can come up, make sure you got the microphone. If you could state your name, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Vivian Clark James. I'm president of the MLK Lower Waverly Neighborhood Association. And my comments on is that, first of all,
Hold on just one second before you speak, and I just need to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth during this proceeding?
yes, I do.
Thank you. All
Yes,
right.
I reside at 906 Oak Street, up the hill from there. This lot is way too long, too short, and too small for this type of building. The house that adjacently beside it, this will cause traffic, lights going into these people's house day and night. I think this property holds 6 bedrooms. Where is the parking? Well, there's no parking behind it. It's an intrusion on the house on the other side of it. It does not, and it does not reflect the character of the community. There is nothing in that community other than the 2 new ones that they just built that looks like that. We do have a historical overlay on parts of our community, and it is not historically in line with how the community looks. It's also what we've been seeing with these development of all of these duplexes in our community is an influx of students. It is totally changing the character of our community. It is causing an influx of traffic, litter, late night partying from 5 Points, and the fact that it is so close within the perimeter of the house on each side, the house on the corner of Oak and Cottage, and the house sitting right next to it. The driveway is so narrow, there is no way that there can be a 2 duplex with 6 bedrooms that does not disturb the neighbors on both sides of this particular property, because it is a very narrow driveway, very narrow steps, and it sits up on a hill overlooking the street. So it is really not accommodating for the size of the property that they're asking to build, nor does it align itself with the historical character of the community. And it's also part of what we've been seeing as an economic gentrification of our community, of pricing people out that would be single families moving back into the community, because these type of facilities usually attract students, and we have been overly inundated with students and Airbnbs and rental properties of that nature. So we are not in favor of this at all.
Thank you. Whoever would like to speak next, please come on up.
Hey,
All right, thank you.
I'm Jim Daniel.
And do you swear to tell the truth during this proceeding?
I do.
Thank you.
I have walked this lot from the bottom to the top. The house as presently constituted cannot fit on that lot because there is a substantial size elevation from the back to the front. I think it's at least 8 to 10 feet difference in grade. There's going to have to be substantial regrading of that lot to make it work. A couple of things. The front wall along Green Street is 44 inches high. There is no access to this lot from Green Street. There's no parking lot there's no driveway off of Green Street. We asked yesterday to get a copy of this revised site plan. I have never seen it, so we need to see it, perhaps taking it to our engineer to look at it and see, but they're gonna have to move a heck of a lot of dirt to make this site work. There is a magnificent, I think, live oak or water oak 14 feet from the fence, just like the ones you see in Charleston. I mean, it goes from one side of the yard to the other. The limbs go down, they go up, they go all around. Even with a 20-foot setback, and that tree is at the front 14 feet, so you got to figure another 3 or 4 feet on top of that. You've got an issue about if you're going to be able to save that tree. There's a second tree on the property line. There's a large indentation between the tree where it goes down and then it starts going up. From the rear, the back 60, 70 feet slope, but not like they do at the front of the lot. On-street parking on Green is not good. It's not helped by the 2 duplexes that I think DDRC improperly approved down the street. The side length of the duplex is 60 feet with no intentions, hyphens, or dog trots. You add the 2 porches, it gets to be like 80 feet. This, right now, there needs to be a total redesign of what he puts there. We need to see how the lot's going to be refigured. Y'all need to see how this lot's going to be reconfigured, because right now, it's like a slope. What's designed right now will not fit until a new site plan is created to show what the new elevations are going to be, to see if it works and see if the design even works. We had a house on Wheeler Hill recently where it basically, the front faced level with Henderson Street. The back of the house, the bottom floor, basically was at the elevation of the land behind it. So basically you had an 8 to 10 foot difference between Henderson Street slope and the detention pond slope behind it. What they did there is they basically put the ground floor at the same level with the rear dirt, and then they elevated the second floor or main floor to the elevation of Henderson Street. They may very well need to do something like that here, because I have walked the site. It's a roller coaster. I mean, it's straight down. Thank you. And we think,
Thank you.
one, this needs to be deferred till we have the opportunity to see the new revised site plan. We asked for it yesterday, hadn't seen it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you pull up the new site plan too, just since we've been talking about it?
Yes. Yes, so here is the new site plan that we received just a few days ago. This one is showing the topography more clearly. Then you can sort of see the slope starting at the front and going back. So they are grading the lot, and then you'll see the rear steps where there is a parking lot behind the house. The steps that go up to the top unit are going up, and then the ones that are on the lower unit, you would step down. So it is taking that elevation into account there. Sure. I'm sorry, what was that? Please.
Oh, turn your microphone on. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, my first time. This does not match the 3D views that were first shown. We show a first floor entry on both sides, but there's actually a second floor entry on the rear. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
Because can you go back to the 3D views really quick?
This one, that one.
So that one with the first floor porch is different,
So so the first floor porch is the rear entry.
but there should be a second floor entry on the rear.
There should, yes, you're correct.
I'm looking at the drawings. That doesn't show, I mean, again, we don't have the site plan, but that shows it's basically level all the way through. Where's the, I mean, the lot at the back is definitely higher.
This shows a significant slope, and I don't think the first floor windows on the other side would work with that driveway if
But
that's
there again,
beyond.
we haven't seen this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the biggest discrepancy. I agree with you, Hunter, that the current, it was great to get a sectional kind of site plan, but I think the elevations and 3D rendering should be accurately represented
Of the latest site
so that we can make the right decision on this.
It's valid points.
Now, look, can I have a point of clarification too? I know that we certainly appreciate some of the concerns that were brought up, but, it's not our jurisdiction to make sure that the zoning requirements are met. When it comes to us anything about the height, setbacks, and things like that, other than our requiring them or asking them to be sure to match it from a historical standpoint. We have nothing in our purview to regulate or attest to whether these meet the setbacks on the side of the house or on any setback. That's a zoning requirement, not a DDRC purview. So just to make that point clear to the public.
And I'd just like to add as well that use and occupancy fall outside of your jurisdiction. Much as
Correct.
we all care about those things, they fall outside of your purview.
And just, I don't know if the public understood that, but I think we're just clarifying the things that are in the commission's purview and things that are not. So like use, some of the concerns about who would be living there or number of people, like a lot of these decisions have been made by or approved by the zoning board. Like, so this, what's in our purview is the way it looks, legitimate points, how it's going to look on the lot. Are the materials going to represent the neighborhood? I mean, this is what's in our purview of what we're looking at now. I don't know, hopefully that helped, because I know I think she was trying to understand what you were saying, Amy. Yeah. Right. Well, if you'd like to speak, please come up. Well, then please come up. Make sure you sign in. I mean, this is a public meeting, and if you can, state your name.
Dr. Bambi Gaddis.
Make sure you speak in the microphone. I don't know if we can hear you.
My name is Dr. Bambi Gaddis. I reside at 904 Oak Street in
Okay, and do you
Columbia.
swear to tell the truth during this proceeding?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. No,
I do.
yeah.
I'll make my comments brief. So just to reiterate what I believe you said, you talked about the construction. This is really a conversation about the construction and whether it meets code. Whether, when I say code, based on your standard of
And the
approval-
guidelines for your neighborhood, what the historic structure finishes, the appearance from the street, yes. And I'm sure staff can elaborate more, but that is what we're focused on.
So what you said you do not address is the issues that probably were discussed or are pending discussions with zoning about who actually inhabits the structure. Has that occurred already? That's
I
a
don't know if
question.
that's occurred or not. That's not in our purview. Has that occurred, or does staff even know?
That would, building permitting, when those things come.
This is not our first rodeo in having to or needing to address this inundation of new structures in our community, which is basically, it's already been noted, taking away the fidelity of our historic community. We are literally simultaneously having other discussions in the mayor's office about new construction that's coming, while we're simultaneously looking at street to street. And street to street, we are literally losing our neighborhood to construction of a massive nature. When I look at that building, and I think last week, and I'll make it brief, during a community children's event where we had almost 200 youth there, I parked my car in the literal driveway that we're talking about right now. I could barely fit my car in that space. And so when I think of what renovations and what construction will be required to make that entryway into that facility, as well as it's, to me, in a way that perceives it, the way I see it, it's like a monstrosity. When I compare it even to the two homes they just built, they were they are actually an upfit and an asset. So we're not against development. We're not against new construction. What we are struggling with is these structures that, like that one that we just saw, that clearly is designed for multiple people who will reside in that, who will never live there, will never stay there. They will live, they will matriculate, and they will go on about their business while we contend with all of the aftermath. And I know that's not in your preview, but to us, it's intersectional. We cannot figure out how a body can discuss whether technologically or constructually it meets code and standard, while we totally ignore the impact that it's going to have on the community in which you're placing it. And so we would just ask that you take all those things under consideration. And thank you for your time.
No, I appreciate, and we definitely appreciate where everybody who's speaking is coming from. We're just trying to focus what areas we need to be reviewing and responding to. And I think we have heard some legitimate concerns from the commissioners of needing to see a better picture of even what the new site plan is showing on the site.
It would really help address the massing and some of those concerns about the street elevation.
And I can clarify one point, which is that the driveway that exists here, I don't know, you'll see it there, that driveway that's over to the left is not part
Not
of
on
this
their
lot.
side.
So they are planning to build into, I guess, take down part of the existing retaining wall and build a new 10-foot wide driveway there. And then the site plan that we had been originally submitted that's in your packets does show a rendering of a driveway, or rather a parking area in the back, but the ones that we got this week have a more detailed parking area behind it. So just to address those.
So I think what would be really helpful, because I agree that I think we need more information to make this decision. That's just my thoughts on this, based on the elevations not corresponding with the site plan, is a more thorough site plan that also puts the context of the other buildings, to Mr. Ledecky's point about the setbacks of the other similar facilities, so that's very clear about the other properties in proximity, as well as what they're going to do to really address how this looks from the street facade, and the back facade for that matter.
Well, we also do not regulate what you can't see from the public right-of-way, so
Right, that's true.
we're anticipating that a lot of the back half or quarter of the house may not, we can't tell how visible it will be at this point. Definitely the back wouldn't be visible, but because of the angle of where you are, we wouldn't be able to see a lot of that.
Is it possible to also add the elevations, existing elevations? I've been on the county website and I found the elevations. It looks like it's a 12-foot drop from the back to the front.
Well, they can show an existing site plan and then, it shows grading, and then put the new site plan. Engineer could provide that.
Yeah. Yeah, this one comes as close to showing the measurements of the site plan, but I know it is hard to read on the screen.
Well, I can open it up for a motion. Someone's got to articulate a motion to throw out there.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
can I
Oh,
ask
I'm
for a
sorry, yeah.
clarification?
Yes.
Ms. Sims Branham, did you want to see also like the front of the house, like an elevation of the front of the house with the grade as it would be graded? So
Correct.
not just, more accurate grading, but from the front is what you want
From
to
the
see?
street level up to yes, I think the massing has to do with what the street level is compared to the height. And I think that would be a better representation of because as these front renderings look, it looks like it's on a flat site, which it's not.
Right, and we often do get them that way just to convey
Exactly.
the structure, but I understand your point. Thank you. Got it.
All right. With that, I'll open it up for a motion.
Well, I move that we defer this to receive additional information about the site plan and the renderings to correctly reflect the grading and the massing of the facade as it pertains to the street.
Second.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes?
Ms. Sims Branham?
Yes.
Ms. Gallo?
Yes.
Mr. Greenberg? Mr. Ledecker?
Yes.
Mr. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
Mr. Shelton? And Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Right. Any other items? I think we have no more on our regular agenda. Is there anything under other business?
Just that after we adjourn, that we're going to want to get a picture of the board. And that is all the business.
Yeah, just to get all of it's the first time. All right. Well, then can I have somebody do a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.